Hello everybody, welcome back to the Norries podcast. Before we get into it there, we just want to remind people that we're supported through Danny Donovan at quickminutes.com.
Yeah, Danny's a very good friend of both myself and James. He comes from the north side as well, and he grew up locally, and he's been a massive supporter of the podcast and both myself and James since we actually began. And he has his own company called Quick Minutes now, and
quickminutes.com is a meeting management application for semi-formal and formal meetings. And look, if you want to know more about that, quickminutes.com, and supporting Danny's supporting us. So if you're interested in that, check them out and enjoy the rest of the podcast. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Norries podcast. I'm your host James and I'm joined by my good friend Timmy Long.
Hi everyone.
Ron is on the deck. Say hi, Ron.
Hi, Ron.
Ron is delighted he got a new SSD for his MacBook, so the thing is like in tip-top shape, and Timmy's looking
just like himself.
I know, yeah. But we have Tony O'Reilly in the studio. Tony is a addiction counsellor with external problem gambling. So you're addiction counsellor, but your area of expertise is specifically in gambling. Nearly all counsellors, psychotherapists, or people that work in that field are pulled into it for some reason. Sometimes it's a family member or they have their own history. But your route into the counselling is fascinating. There's been a book, there's been a documentary, there's been multiple TV things, and so we're delighted to have you here. Long time in the making.
It has been finally at the pinnacle, finishing the show. Finally.
And thanks for coming. Thank you so much.
But before we start, I think we should say how when Timmy came into the studio, I was here with Tony, and the two boys were like, one day moments we were like, I know his face.
I know his face. I just came in and I said, fuck it, I know this fella. And then I was in my head and I said, I hope no, I did nothing to this guy. But yeah, we sat down, we started chatting, and Tony was in Shelton Abbey the same time as me. We were there for about 6 months together, but the two of us were quiet. Like, I done my thing, he done his thing, and that's why we never crossed paths. And it wasn't until I was actually sitting on the table here and I looked across and I said, fuck, I know him. So
it's a small world, isn't it?
It is a small world.
Yeah, it was the same as yourself. Even when I was just looking at one or two with podcasts, and I just said, I know that face from somewhere. I was thinking, is he Carla man, or where do I know him from? And then when I mentioned Shelton, it kind of came flowing back. It just shows like how small a world it is.
I used to do a lot of meditating in Shelton Abbey. Shelton Abbey, I got one
gardens.
Out in the gardens.
Nice place for it, isn't it?
It is. It's a beautiful place. Yeah. Out in the gardens, down in the hallway, outside the governor's office, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, I call it my country manor when I'm describing in workshops. It's kind of, I suppose, as you're coming back into society, it's probably, the nicest place to be that you can be for what it is. But also when you're bringing in kind of, my daughter was very young at the time. She was only 1 or 2. So on visits, it just felt, I suppose it wasn't as traumatic, I suppose, for her, even though she mightn't remember, if you're going through x-rays and stuff in the closed prisons, there's ducks and pheasants. And it was interesting, I was actually doing a school talk in Arklow a couple of weeks ago, and one of the young students came up and said, you do say you were in Shelton, and his dad was the gamekeeper for all the pheasants, pheasants. So it's mad how it's such a small world. But yeah, it's great to meet under different circumstances.
It's gas, when you're in somewhere like that, depending on your headspace at the time, like you were talking about, doing the meditation up there, and you're kind of trying to reintegrate back in society. But I remember when I was up there as a younger person, all I wanted, they had George Foreman grills and PlayStation 2s, and that was it, the immaturity of it. But before we get into the prison and stuff like that, we go way back. For the people that don't know you want to tell us a little bit about where you're from, what it was like growing up for you?
So I'm from Carlow originally, born in 74, and childhood was normal childhood, but I always felt kind of insecure on the periphery of stuff. I suppose I've done a lot of reflection over the years, and even just thinking about childhood stuff, I always felt like I didn't quite fit in. I was probably a year younger than all my friends, probably a little bit behind them in growing facial hair and kind of, in size and stuff. I was kind of always small. And I suppose there was always an insecurity there from a very early age. But, I had a very, positive childhood, playing football kind of. But I always felt that I was always jumping between groups, trying to find exactly where I fitted in.
Because a year and a difference is a lot when you're a child.
Huge.
And if you're 5 or if you're, let's say, 8 or 9 and you're in a class with 10 or 11, like that year in development is a big deal. Like you're not picking up the language, the English, the maths as quick as the fellas that's a year ahead of you, you know?
Yeah.
So like you're at a disadvantage from the outset.
Yeah. I suppose to combat that insecurity, I used to kind of even probably 14, 15, I was always, or maybe it was signing things to come as well, I was always buying stuff to make myself feel good or to make myself feel secure, I suppose. So my room was like my haven. It was surrounded by CDs, kind of the best of tellies, stereos. I was nearly known as the higher purchase king in Cardiff because I go in and always buy something but always pay the money back off it. And I suppose that was a kind of, looking back now, that was very much a coping skill for anxiety or stress or whatever that might be. And that kind of stayed with me throughout. And even today, now it's still very much there at times as well. It's something I have to be very mindful of. But yeah, I suppose I went through my adolescent years working. I'd done a lot of kind of work. I used to babysit a lot. I used to do cutting grass with a friend of mine. I liked the feeling of having money as well. And I suppose then I was 17, doing my leaving cert very young and immature. Like I do a lot of school talks with extern. And a lot of people now do transition year versus for when I was going to school. So I was just gone 17, kind of, I think I spent more time doing study timetables than I did actually doing study. Yeah. And I suppose I was always aware that I could just go to the local IT. And I got in there, was doing course I didn't like, left it after a year to go working, went in, started working at a bar called Scraggs Alley, where I worked there for years and years. And I suppose when I was 25, I wanted to change the direction. That's when I started working with An Post as a part-time postman. Still doing a few hours in the pub. And it was around that time I had my first bed at 24, 25. So again, in what we hear in our service, it's relatively late to what we hear other people getting into. Because a lot of our service users now are, the age cohort is definitely coming down compared. So it was that's kind of a snapshot of my... What
happened around the age of 25? How did you have the first bet? Was it the company you were keeping or...?
No, it was just a random moment. It was the quarter-final of the World Cup. I was working that Saturday. 98, France 98.
Oh, yeah.
Argentina and Holland. And...
Dennis Bergkamp.
Yes.
Great goal. Yeah,
exactly. And I always say it's how it happened as much as the money I won. So I was kind of working that day. A friend of mine was having a few drinks at the bar. Just said, listen, I'm going to put a bet on the match. I fancy Holland to win. And I was on my lunch break, so I said, sure, go down and have a look. No, I didn't carry much cash with me. So I had a couple of euro or pounds at the time in my pocket. Went into the bookies. I was taken back really when I went in about, smoke-filled, generally older men, dockets everywhere, the energy, the buzz in it. And
the boy in the back of the air.
Yeah, but I wasn't quite at that level at that stage. But
that's pro level,
yes,
isn't it?
But I remember I was going to back Cliver to score first because, I remember him dashing Ireland's dreams 2 years earlier.
In Liverpool, that
in
was.
Anfield,
in the playoffs.
And so I decided I was going to put a bet on him at £1 bet at about 6-1 to score the first goal. And then as I was placing that first bet, or my friend was showing me throughout the docket, I noticed there was a special on the board for him to score first and for Holland to win 2-1. Which was 45-1. Now, in today's terms, probably equivalent putting €3 or €4 on and winning between 100 and 150 euro. And this was 45-1, so I was due to win £45 if this won. And I remember I said, I'm going to do that. My friend said, imagine how many things have to happen or not happen for you to win that. And my exact words were, it's only £1. And it'll be a bit of interest for the match. And he flicked me over £1 and said, stick £1 out for me because you'll probably have beginner's luck.
Yeah.
Went back up to watch the match. Cliver scored after 12 minutes. A fella called Lopez equalised for Argentina after 70 minutes. And then I got that buzz that you hear about, that initial buzz. And for the next 73 odd minutes, I was in that game. Holland and man sent off later on the game.
Was it Claudio Lopez? He was playing for Valencia, striker.
That's who scored, yeah. He scored. And then I think Holland, I forget who got sent off for Holland, but then I remember Ortega tried to headbutt Edwin van der Sar, and then he got sent off. So with the last 10 minutes...
Ortega's half his height.
Yeah, and then the last 10 minutes was, we were back in the game. And I remember I was just saying to my friend, listen, we have extra time. And he said, no, it has to be 90 minutes to bet. And as we were having that conversation, bang, the Bergkamp goal happened. And it was how it happened. Even now talking about it now, I can feel the goosebumps. Now I've watched that video hundreds of times for presentations, but it's like you can't describe that buzz. It was kind of, I'd won £45, which was probably about half a week's wages from back then, but it's how it happened as well as that buzz. If you see a last minute point or a goal or it just adds to the excitement of it. And I was hooked. And I remember going to bed at night thinking this is easy. And then that started my whole journey of gambling.
Do you know, with your education and, you know, you're obviously a counsellor now, that is it the endorphins, the serotonin, the dopamine hit that gives you? Is that what you're actually chasing then from then on in?
I think so, yeah. I think at the start
that.
you are, and then I think at the end you're just chasing normality, if that's such a thing.
There's a buzz off all of it.
Yeah.
There's actually a buzz off
Losing as well.
Losing. There's a buzz off losing. You know,
it's really about being in action in the chaos, isn't it?
It's just about being there. It's just everything to do with it. It's about standing there looking at it. It's about shouting. It's about talking to the lads in there. It's about having a bit of a rapport with the people behind the counter and a bit of crack with them. And there's so much to it.
It's all that. Like, I know when I'm working with clients, you kind of do a cost benefit and you ask them what are the things that you used to get from gambling. And it's always escapism, buzz, excitement, the ability to fix the financial situation or win money, the social element, and alleviate boredom. They're always the 5 things you hear. But for me as well, it was that ego. Like, that's like, I'm good at this. And then everyone else is telling you you're good at it. Like, how would you pick that? You're brilliant. You know, there was someone would give someone a tip for a horse and everyone's congratulating the fella for giving the tip. So it's kind of that whole ego thing kind of really kicked in. And at a time probably when there's probably other stuff going on in my life that was kind of insecure about, I think that really kind of made me feel good. And I was chasing that feeling then always from then.
Did you put much work into your bets, or were they just
at the start
on a whim?
At the start, you know, you'd be gambling on stuff you'd know about. Like, you're gambling on, you know, the Premier League or the Championship. At the end, I was gambling on Azerbaijan football. I was gambling on Peruvian netball. Like, one of the in the court case, one of the bets was mentioned. I had €40,000 on the ladies' Norwegian football team at 6-4 at a time when even ladies football now has gone a lot bigger. But at that time, there was probably 40 people at the match, and here's some random person in Carlow in Ireland having €40,000 on it. Like, even when I say that, and that would be normal for me at that stage. So it went from £1 to £5 to, you know, you can see the progression. But I
used to gamble on the red and black.
Yeah.
They used to let me in while the cleaners were inside in the bookies in the mornings, and I used to go in and I'd gamble €500 on red and black.
It's mad, isn't it?
And I'd just be chasing for the whole day.
Yeah.
Chasing what I've lost. You could be doing any amounts of money, and you just chasing. You know, and in Gamblers Anonymous, it's never about. It was never about the quantity of money. It was just about how it just made us all feel. You know, that feeling that you have to make what you lost back.
Yeah, because...
You know, and the bets get bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, it's like insidious. Yeah,
because like the figures in my story are big. That's why, you know, it was sensationalized at the time. But it's if someone is spending €10 that they can't afford a week, or €100, or all their social welfare money, or their wages or disposable income, and how it impacts them and their relationships and their mental health, as you were saying.
Is that how it started for you, Tony? Did it start by you just going into the bookies after getting paid at the end of the week and spending your wages?
It started like from 98 to 2003. It stayed at a level that I would be classed as a normal, regular gambler. I was gambling. I was working more Saturdays. So you go down, you pick out your teams on Saturday morning on your tea break. You go down, place your bet. Soccer Saturday would come on, Jeff Stelling and everyone, and you'd spend a day keeping an eye on the results as you were serving. And if it won, brilliant. If it lost, you know, it's only a 5 or a tenner. And it very much stayed at that level. Now, you know, the odd time you get tip for a horse, you might put a little bit more than you should have. You might kind of, you know, you might put €20 on instead, €10 on your weekend bet. You know, you might do a midweek thing, but it was very much within my...
There's no red flags, like...
No, not until I got an online account. As soon as I got that, that's when it started.
Because of course, traditionally, like back in the day, if you went into a bookies, you could only lose what you had in your pocket. But with online banking, you could clear out your account in a night.
You could lose your house.
You could lose everything, yeah.
And can you talk about the type of account you had, or who you had it with? Or?
Yeah, it was a Paddy Power account, and the reason was that it could have been any account. It's just my girlfriend's brother at the time bought me €50 voucher for Christmas. Might sound like a strange present to buy some. Well, like, you know, we talked about bets, you know, people knew I liked to bet, and you know, he gave me a voucher, and went in with the voucher naively into Paddy Power, said, can I use that to place a bet? And I said, no, you have to open up an online account. And I went, all right. So I went home. I had a Dell PC in my bedroom before smartphones, before laptop. I didn't have a laptop, and typed in the username. What username I'll have? Looked at the shelf. Pearl Jam 10, one of my favourite albums of all time, Tony 10, and opened up the account and lodged in the €50. And to lodge, you had to associate a debit card or a credit card to a lodge extra money. Now it's different now. You can nearly have their own bank cards. You can lodge cash over the counter. And I put, I associated my MB&A credit card. So that changed everything, because now I could gamble from the comfort of my own bedroom without having to get into the car and drive down. I was gambling with credit. I was gambling with, it didn't feel tangible, not having real money. As you said, if you have money in your pocket, you can only lose what you lose. But I was gambling with borrowed money, essentially. And that started to change how I gambled, because now I was kind of going on most evenings. And then I was kind of going, well, I put on 20 or 40 euro. So
you said you were gambling on credit or money, like were you borrowing at that stage?
Well, what would happen was that the credit card, you'd be kind of, you'd be building up, and then you pay off the minimum repayment. You'd have the odd win here and there, and you'd pay it off. But the bet I always say changed everything was in 2005. It was the final of the UEFA Cup, which is now the Europa League, and CSK Moscow were playing Sporting Lisbon, and it was in Sporting Lisbon's ground that year. And I arrived home from work, and CSK Moscow were 1-0 down. And I decided I was going to place a bet on to win the game. They were 10-1 to win the match. So I had 50 euro in my online account, and I said, I'm going to put 50 euro on these. And just as I was about to press bet now, I saw that West Ham were playing Ipswich in the playoff semi-finals. So I said, right, I fancy Bobby Zamora to score first, so I'm going to double it up. And again, it's the first time I really started to hide my gambling, because I had a laptop at this stage, but my partner was in the room, so I just moved it slightly so she couldn't see how much money I was putting on. So I put 50 euro double, closed down the laptop, and went up to have a shower, come down for the second half. Within 11 second half minutes, CSK Moscow had equalising on 2-1 up, and Bobby Zamora scored the first goal. So I let a shout out of me, and I would in the sitting room. And,
what was the odds on it?
The odds were 8-1 going on to 10-1.
Nice.
So I hadn't really made it up. And my partner came in and said, what's the story? Are Liverpool playing? I said, no, they're playing next week in the Champions League final.
That's right, yeah.
And she said, what are you shouting for? And I said, I will have a bit of a bet on. And that's when I started lying about my gambling, really, because I said, I put a tenner on, and I'm due to win 500 euro if this wins. But sure, I'll be able to give it to you just as part of, you can get stuff for. And just to kind of, manipulate the situation. And then they scored a third goal. So, I'd celebrate. But when I opened up the laptop, again, I turned it and hit it. When I hit refresh, it was 4,950 euro in the account. And the only thing I was left with thinking, it was 8-1 going on to a 10-1. So
for 50 euro.
Yeah. So the 50 went on to 10-1. Just 550 was going on to an 8-1 shot.
Jeez,
And I remember thinking, instead of thinking, wow, this is like an hour's gambling, I suppose.
So the two odds accumulated.
Yeah. So I was just, and the only thing that was in my head was, why didn't I put 100 euro on it? I could have won 10,000. Why didn't I put 200 euro on it?
Yeah.
And then what happened is I gave my partner 500 euro, whatever it was. I put 1,500 euro back onto my credit card, pay off some of their payments. But I left 3,000 euro in my online account. And then I started gambling with more money. So now bets of 100 euro, 200 euro became, and then that match, Liverpool, the following week, I lost most of it on that. And the week after, when I was chasing it. And then I couldn't go back to just betting tenors.
That Liverpool game went into extra time, didn't it?
Yeah, 3-3 draw on penalties. But I lost a lot of money on that. And what happened then was, your tolerance levels are going to be, you don't get the same buzz or excitement putting on a fiver anymore. It has to be 100.
Yeah. You said something that was very important for people listening and family members. And it doesn't really matter what kind of addiction it is, but if you're ever hiding something, that's a big red flag. Or if you're hiding food, or you're hiding your medication, or you're hiding the alcohol, you're hiding the gambling, like that's a real sign that it's getting out of hand, isn't it? Yeah,
because my friend always says it afterwards, like after the fact, he said, like, I should have known something was wrong, because he rang me one day when I was in the height of it. And of course I saw the phone call, and usually you'd answer in the bookies, but I went outside to answer it because I didn't want him knowing I was in there. So again, I was even hiding it from him. And I didn't hang up when I went back in. And he could hear the bookies in the background. He always said, he calls me Riley. He said, I wonder why Riley was lying to me about where he was. It's not like, he's no need to lie to me. Was your partner, you might be saying, yeah, I'm on the way home.
Exactly.
But he saw that as a huge kind of, but he never questioned it. He just kind of, he didn't, it's only after he said, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Or that's why he knew so much about second division German football. Or that's why he was so good in table quizzes, when you can know the capital of different countries around Europe from the football teams. So it's kind of.
And like your gambling now is getting a little bit out of hand, and you're working in the post office as well.
Yeah.
At what stage did you start to dip into the reserves in the post office? What
happened was, over the next couple of years, I started getting more and more debt because of my gambling. So by the time I got married, I was about 25,000 euro in debt from gambling. And
what age were you then?
geez, good question. 33.
And this is about 9 years after you started.
Yeah, it's about 4 years after the online, after I opened the online account.
And is the debt with the bank?
That's with the bank. So I'd max out the credit card, go to the bank, get a loan, clear off the credit card, and start the whole process again. Convinced that I'd win it back. And I remember coming up to 2007 when I was getting married. One of the stories in the book was that a couple of weeks before the wedding, I'm €25,000 in debt. No way of, I'm supposed to have €6,000 on my credit card to pay the balance of the wedding. Not there. I'm starting to panic. So I start selling stuff to try win money. You know, you're selling stuff online, putting it off your thing. You're selling the best of albums that you've collected and old PlayStations and whatever you can get your hands on, and trying to win back this exact amount. And then a week before the wedding, went to the credit union, looking for the amount. Couldn't give it to me. Said you're getting too many top ups. Start panicking. I'm over in Cyprus. We got married in Cyprus. It was 82 of us flew over, and I was desperate. I remember I got €6,000 in the end, and I went over to Cyprus. Arrived on a Wednesday, a few drinks, bit of crack, going to bed at night thinking, like, it was before smartphones. I didn't have a smartphone, so I had no way of placing the bet. I used to ring in my bets on my Nokia 3210, knew the credit card number off by heart, used to ring it in all the time. And then I didn't have my laptop with me then, and I was there, at least when I'm over here I won't be able to place a bet. So I had the money I got the money in the end to put off the credit card. I'm going to bed that night and I noticed PCs in the foyer at a hotel, thinking, oh, maybe I'll be able to get a bet on. So, it took Cypriot pounds, the box, and I went online. I said, and my rationalization was I still need to get all this money back before herself finds out about it. And I'll just put a couple of €100 on. She'll be getting cash as presents. I'll be able to add that to pay for the hotel. I'm sure you know what happens. Spirals. I lose the first €500, start chasing it. 2 days before the wedding, I have no money in my online account or no money on my credit card. And I'm sitting there in the bar thinking, what am I going to do? My friend comes in, best man, he said, are you okay? You haven't been yourself. I said, in fact, you haven't been yourself for the last couple of months. And I said, no, I'm fine. And he said, are you sure? And I said, no, I'm fine. And I kind of, what am I going to do? Because I'm over in Cyprus, 82 family. I said, I'm going to be discovered. And then I remember, geez, I had forgotten about that was running. That was kept going. So it was a 4-part accumulator that I had done with about €50 with the view of winning €6,000. So 2 elements had won. Derby County won the playoff final that day. And 2 days after the wedding, there was a horse called Norries running the Derby. And all the money from the previous 3 lots were going on to him to win. So the wedding came and went, and I was stressed all day, worried about, am I going to be able to even pay for this? 2 days after the wedding, I'm sitting on the hotel bed looking at this race unfold, and he comes from way back to win the race. And I go into the toilet and bite my fist, like, just didn't want to, nearly stop myself screaming with pure relief.
I can feel the stress there.
I know how it feels. Trust me.
Jesus Christ, I know what it's like to let people down, like, and feeling like, how am I going to get out of this one? Like,
I was doing what he was doing with drug money, like with money that was owed to drug deal.
It's the same thing.
It was the same thing, and
it's like chaos, isn't it?
And like when you have to face people that are involved in drugs and who could potentially harm you or your family because of them not getting your money, it's a really and I could feel everything that was going on for you there, because I know how it is,
But even reliving it, even at times, like, I've been watching, I said I've told a story loads of times. I do the school talks, but even when I show a bit of the race from the documentary, from the school talks, and it still get the hairs in the back of my neck, kind of going like, how did I get away with this?
You got bailed out there big time.
I did, but then the worst thing is that you think you can do it all the time, then you think you're bulletproof. So I got back to Carlo a week later thinking, right, I need to fix this. This is wrong. I shouldn't be waiting on a horse to pay for anything, let alone your wedding. So instead of, looking for help or support, which looking back now is something I should have done, but no, that's not always the case while in addiction. But like, that's the difference, I suppose, between alcohol and gambling, I suppose, because alcohol, you can't necessarily drink you out of a problem, but with gambling, you're convinced you can gamble your way out. And that's what I tried to do. I got a loan a couple of months later, the bank rolled it. That continued up. By the time I got the job in the post office, I was probably about €45,000 in debt, and didn't even know whether I could take up the position because I had no money to buy a second car. Scraped enough money to get a banger together and took up the position. And my gambling stopped, kind of went lower for a while because I had no way of putting money into my online account. My electronic means were gone. Like, I was told I couldn't get another loan for about 2 years.
Is there any alarm bells at any point here from your wife? Or
no, because
He was completely,
you know,
it's very hidden.
You
Yeah.
hide it. Like you become a brilliant liar.
Yeah.
Like I remember.
Did she ever wonder was there something wrong with you? Was your mental health? Because we become complete loners, and it's like we're introverted completely into the mind. There's nothing else going on.
There's a couple of things, I suppose, because I snore a lot. Like it was always kind of, I'm staying in the spare room so you get a good night's sleep. So there's always an excuse. Yeah. Because you're on your phone, it's kind of like, well, get off your phone. Like I'm sure we're all guilty of that nowadays. But you know, there's one story about hiding it. Like I remember one particular time I was I got a tip for a horse run for Paddy. I think it was the Scottish Grand National, and I was due to go on holidays that evening. I don't know where it was, Lanzarote or somewhere, and I had €1,000 cash in my pocket to go on holidays. And I said, right, I'm going to go down, place a bet on this horse. Might put €20 each way or €50 each way. And it was before it was a big problem. And I remember being on the bookies an hour before the race, and I lost 900 of the €1,000 on cartoon racing and American racing, whatever it was.
Your virtual stuff.
14 to 1s, €100 each way was what I ended up doing at the end. And I remember just thinking, right, if this, I had €50, I put €50 each way, last bit of money on this horse to win the Scottish Grand National. And I was just thinking, right, if he does win, or it could have been €30 each way, I can't remember exactly, but my rationalisation was, if this doesn't win, I'm going to go outside, throw away my wallet and beat my head off the wall and go home and say I was mugged. So that's why you hide, or you come up with anything to do it. The horse won the bet, the favourite, Ruby Walsh was on the favourite at a very short price, and I bet him by a nose, and I got near enough all the money back, and I just walked with the bookies. So like, just loads of situations like that where...
That was a close one, like.
But then, obviously, you know, when I was that much in debt before I got the job, my wife became pregnant a little bit after I took up the position, and that's when I gave you a long-winded answer when I started dipping into it. Yeah. I suppose I'm sitting there thinking, well, she's not going to be getting maternity pay. She doesn't know all the debts I have because I'm hiding it. I'm just about keeping my head above water. I know that in 6 months' time, she's going to be out of work for 9 months with only social welfare payment. And I'm kind of thinking, how am I going to fix this? I may try win all this money back. And it's one of those moments you're sitting there kind of going, oh, maybe I could just borrow some of the money. You know, like, to say for fraud to happen, there has to be pressure, opportunity and rationalisation. The pressure was immense because while she was having morning sickness in one bathroom, I was in the other bathroom getting sick with stress. I was comfort eating, I was bloated from stress, I wasn't talking to anyone, I was gone very withdrawn from social situations. And just one day I just said, well, maybe I could take a bit of coin here and I'll win it back and replace it and I'll bankroll this. And it just snowballed into notes, stealing notes. And I used to slice down the corners of the bundles of 50s, just come and packed in 50,000 and take surgery move 2,000 or 3,000 from a bundle, place it back in knowing that the auditing would only check the actual amount of bundles, it wouldn't open them up. So I got a system, and then when I got through an audit or two, having got, you know, they didn't spot the fact it was €8,000 missing. I never forget the second audit. I went down to Carlo and begged my man to get €8,000 a loan from the credit union for me because I wanted to put it back into the safe, because I knew one of the rare moments of clarity where you know something's wrong. And I remember the audit team arrived that day and I couldn't put the check in time. So I got away with that. The €8,000 just counted the amount of bundles, the ones that were missing money, just counted them as full. Yeah. So I'm sitting in the office that evening with knowing that they're not coming back for 6 months, and I have this other 8,000 in my pocket, and I just I'll use this to bankroll my next gambling plan, and that was gone within a couple of weeks. So then that really accelerated.
What kind of bets were you doing at that stage?
€500 bets, €1,000 bets. You know, like quickly, because you're so desperate. Yeah. You're in a frenzy. You're not thinking rationally. You just you're putting it on stuff that you don't know anything about.
And how you just explained to us there how that actually worked, because I was a little bit curious how don't they notice that there's money actually being taken out of the account?
The auditors must have gotten into trouble afterwards.
I'd imagine so. Yeah.
So how did it actually escalate into? Are you okay talking about all this?
Yeah, it's all.
How did it actually escalate into? How much was 1.75 million?
That's a lot of fucking €50 notes.
Like when you say it, like it's
yes, we would have done some gambling back in the day if we had that.
But it's even when you say it, like it still feels surreal.
It's
still
mad, like
it started off at 8,000, and then by the time my daughter was born in 2010, it was 68,000. Yeah. So then you're panicking, thinking I have to get this back quicker. So you're taking more money and more money. By the time that Christmas came, when the audit came that Christmas, it was €293,000. And I remember I got through the audit because I changed, at this stage I wasn't surgically removing cash, I was just changing the figure on the balance sheet. time of the bad snow in 2010. It was the time of the banking crisis. A lot of people were moving money into on post because it was state guaranteed. So it wouldn't be unusual to have big check figures. So obviously there was a glitch in the system that the auditors didn't pick up on, that they never questioned, the figures that came back from the bank versus what I was showing on the balance sheet. And I believe I lost my mind from that January till June because I stole 1.45 million in the space of about 6 months. And at the very end, I was literally stealing €75,000 a week.
You're taking no stacks of thousands at this stage.
15,000 in, putting into my backpack and going into 2 Paddy Powers. Not that I was driving around every single Paddy Power office. It was going into 2 Paddy Power offices.
And at that stage, are you thinking like, fuck it, I don't give a fuck?
I think you just lose.
No, it's you still have the hope that you're going to win it back. You're going to have this one big win.
Yeah.
There's always that hope. But
you're convinced.
Going back to Paddy Powers a little bit there, like, at any point was there any alarm bells going on for them? Like, did they ever question
there was, like Aaron Rogan wrote a great book called Punters on the rise of Paddy Power, and there's a section on there around my story because it's part of their history, obviously. And they had people looking, Google Map my house to see where I lived because the amount of bets I was putting on. They had people specifically on my account to monitor the bets I was doing because they were part of, or sometimes they thought I was another Barney Curley that was going to get them for millions because of the kind of way I was gambling. I was just someone who was addicted. I was just gambling on the next thing. It was never a question. Like I said, I was lodging the cash over 2 counters. So from a money launderer point of view, it wasn't questioned. Like, and also the manipulation was there because if I won money and there was odd money on the bet, I'd leave a couple of €100 behind the counter for the staff so that they wouldn't question it. So you're manipulating them as well. Now, this could have been Ladbrokes or it could have been Boyle Sports. It was just that's who I gambled with. It could have been any of them.
Stan James.
Yeah, it could have been any of them. Yeah. So, and I remember even one of the ladies who worked in Gorey lit my daughter a cardigan for her christening because they knew everything about me. Like, they'd buy me jerseys for me birthday, like, because I was a good customer. They were looking at my accounts. Like, I think it came to light in the book that on quiet days, I was doing as much gambling on my online account as the rest of Paddy Power put together. Now, that was going back 10 or 11 years ago, and maybe the online was coming in. So it was one of their main accounts at the time.
That's the rest of Paddy Power in the whole country.
Yeah, or it's Paddy Power online.
Oh, fuck.
So it was something that, should have been flagged, could have been flagged.
Brings up the debate around, like, is there an obligation on the betting company to freeze an account if they think that there's an addiction? Like, it sounds like with Paddy Power that they're seeing probably that there was an addiction, but they tried to get more out of you by incentivising you. Did they give you free tickets and stuff like this?
Yeah, I suppose I was probably the exception to the rule in a few sense. I wouldn't ring up looking for free bonuses. Like, I've worked with colleagues in the UK where they've rang up looking for free bonuses. We got box seats to Premier League games. I was told afterwards I could have asked for anything and I would have got round the world trips, tickets to World Cup finals, tickets to any event I wanted. I ended up going to the UEFA Cup final in the Aviva, champagne dinner.
Falco.
Yeah, that's right. I actually had him back to score first. Yeah. And I think €100 on it.
Atletico Madrid and FC Porto, wasn't it?
Which one?
Atletico Madrid and FC Porto, was it?
No, it was another. I can't remember. It was
Braga.
It was another Portuguese side. I was brought to the Budweiser Irish Derby just before the news broke. I was brought that. I remember it was like one of those moments where I walk into the room and Paddy Power's there and he just looks and I just look. I don't want him to stand because my friends are with me, and he probably sure hell doesn't want me to be in the room either. Yeah. So. Yeah, it was never questioned. The manager of the Carlo office flagged me down in the street after the news came out, and he said, "Oh, we thought you were involved in the Russian mafia. We thought you'd won the lottery. We thought you had a rich auntie." But at any stage, it didn't question, like, well, if you did have all that, why are you gambling it all away? So even in light of it being a problem, it was never questioned.
It just looked like as this normalised behaviour.
Yeah, but they'll actually restrict your account if you're winning.
It's
really,
that's the thing. If you're winning money, they will actually
will stop you.
Restrict your account.
The phone call will come in and they'll be told stop the bet.
Or they'll reduce your stake. Yeah,
it happened me loads. But going back to what you were saying there, James, it's like this. It's like if a guy owns a lap dancing parlour and there's someone going in and spending €6,000 and €7,000 a night, he's not going to say, lads, you have to stop spending your money. You're spending way too much.
I know.
Money. It's all about the money game.
I know.
Isn't it?
And that's why we need the regulation in, because obviously when you're addicted, you can't make those rational decisions.
No.
So we need, the government to step up, or we need the bookie office. Now, in fairness to Paddy Power, they're probably a lot more proactive now than they were back then, and probably even more proactive than a lot of the other bookies. But we need the legislation in place, which is...
That's not by choice, though.
They're really shamed into it.
That's by shamed into it, and the government bringing in regulations and stuff like that. That's not by choice.
Any hope we had of ever getting a sponsorship off Paddy Power has gone on.
We would never we would never associate ourselves with anything like that.
Definitely not.
Or anything that doesn't represent.
We've declined sponsorship on this podcast if it didn't align with what we wanted. You know what I mean? It's important to have your integrity, but in some companies there's no integrity. They just take and take and take, and that's kind of what we're against when you're advocating for people in recovery. Has to be about fucking having a bit of control over all that stuff.
Yeah, because I'm not anti-gambling. It is something that's enjoyed by the majority, but we need to have...
I throw an ad fiver on an accumulator there for the soccer.
It's there for enjoyment, but it's it's marketed as this entertainment. If you went to the cinema or went to a concert, or you wouldn't ask for your money back on the way out because you're paying for the entertainment. But there's an expectation, even from people who mightn't be at a problematic level of gambling, that I'm due to bring my money back here. And when you don't, you're chasing losses and stuff like that. So it needs to be more balanced of a marketing. I look at any ad of the ads. It's like when the fun stop, or take time to think, or set your limits. It puts all the onus on the individual.
But their marketing is brilliant in Paddy Power.
Hats off to them,
They're very funny on Twitter. They have funny posters. They go viral a lot of the time as well, and this.
I was just going to say, how was your mental health during all this, because I know towards the end, when you're after losing vast amounts of money.
Suicide is common.
Yeah, towards the end, I was walking out of the bookies, and I was contemplating taking my own life because I was wondering how I was going to pay back these large quantities of cash that I was spending inside in Stan James, and I was lost. I was going over home into a box room inside my mother's house and staying in the bedroom, and I really genuinely didn't know what to do with my life.
You do feel lost, you feel numb, you feel empty, you feel devoid of any happiness. And we were even talking beforehand about, it took a few years for that, even in recovery, for that sense of self, or sense of connection with self, or sense of even enjoying sport for what it's supposed to be. You're just numb for, that's the best way to describe it. And again, you had the suicidal ideation, when the news came out, I just got in a car and drove as far away as I could. I ended up in Belfast and then in Carrickfergus, and over that weekend, I'm still gambling, thinking I can win all this money back. But even now, looking back, even if I did get all the money back, I would have been discovered anyway. And in I done the documentary with Baz a couple of years ago, and we went back to Carrickfergus, and I was back in the room that I was in, and it brought it all back. That's where I contemplate taking my own life, because you're thinking, I'm after letting everyone down, I'm after failing everyone, I'm no good, I'm no good of a man. How could you're weak? How did you let it get to this?
Girls are on your case at this stage as well.
No, I was still down as a missing person until I went into Paddy Power on the Friday night, because I had a docket with €10,000 on it that I used to do bets in the bookies, big ones, and I remember I went in knowing that even when I go in to try cash it, they would know where I was. So it's like someone who goes in to get their fix and doesn't care about the consequences. So I arrive into the bookies on the Friday night in Belfast, go up to the counter, asked the fellow behind the counter, said, can you cash in that into my username, Tony10? And he said, he scanned it and he looked at it and he kind of, you do know how much money's in it? I said, yeah, just put it on. And that transaction would normally take 40 or 50 seconds. And he was in and out, and I was kind of getting a bit spooked, because I've heard from Aaron Rogan since that they had pictures of me behind the counter and on their systems told not to take my bets, but not to spook me, I suppose. But I did, and I left the office. And I just told him some excuse. I was going out to check my car because I was having a bit of a panic attack. And I was kind of thinking, right, what do I do? And next thing, a police car comes flying down to this bookie past this bookie office in Belfast. And it stops outside. And I think they're here for me. So I'm just ready to go running back to the car and driving off back to Carrickfergus. And then the police car flies off in a different direction. So I go back into the book. Then you're kind of left with that dilemma. Should I just leave the docket there? But the addicted part of me needed to go back in and get this docket, because I needed to continue to gamble. And I went in and I just said, listen, I'm going across the water in the morning. I'm staying at Carrickfergus. I'll take back the docket and I'll cash it in another time. And he gave me back the docket and I walked out. Now, I don't know why I told him I was staying in Carrickfergus, but that's the reason why I'm sitting here, because on that night, that Saturday morning I arrived down into the bookies, and that's when news broke. Like, I saw the picture of the Gorey post office and newspaper, and one line really resonated with me, like, family and friends were looking from the Wicklow Mountains. And I said I may make contact. So I started emailing my dad and my wife, and I started saying, I'm sorry for everything. But they had already used Google Maps. When I left that bookie office that evening, I was caught in CCTV footage, and the Gardaí got a copy, and there was cobblestones outside the Paddy Power office. So my father, while I was in the Garda station when the picture came through, he saw that there was cobblestones. He went back to the family home, and there was a big meeting on that night, because I'd been missing since Wednesday with no one hearing anything from me. And they used Google Maps, found the address of the office, and decided we're going to go up the following morning to try find me. So the following morning, they're en route to Belfast. I'm in the bookie office at 2 o'clock. That's when I placed my last ever bet. Horse called Badea in the 235 in Newbury, I think. It lost at 11-4, 100 sterling, I'll never forget. And that's when I read the article. That's why I'll never forget. And I remember just seeing the headlines, and I went back to the hotel room, closed the curtains, and the room was dark. But my mind started getting dark as well. I started emailing my wife saying, I'm sorry for everything, I can't go on. And while I was actually emailing my sister-in-law, who was relaying the message to my wife, who was already in the bookie office in Belfast looking for me. And my best friend Niall will always say, he put a bit of pressure on your man behind the counter to give him any information, because he wasn't giving any, obviously for GDPR. And he told him that I said I was staying at Carrickfergus. So while my messages were getting darker and more desperate on email, they arrived in the Carrickfergus and found my car down by the seafront. It was just coincidence. I used to have to move it every morning. And they feared the worst, got the police involved. And at 5:30 that evening, and I suppose the one thing that stopped me from, carrying out to try to suicide to myself would have been thoughts of my daughter. Not, I can't leave her with this, no matter what the consequences are. I just can't ever leave her with that. And at 5:30 that evening, 2 police officers knocked on my door with guns. Just stood in the door. One of them stood into the room. I'll never forget what he said. He said, "I'm not here to arrest you. We're worried about your mental health and your state of mind." And I could hear the other fella outside saying, we found him. And I suppose that's, even talking about now, it still brings back like the impact that must have had on my family. And and there in Carrickfergus, 15 of them trying to find me. And I just collapsed in the hotel bed. And I suppose that's my first ever kind of experience of counselling and such, because I just pushed that poor fella, leaned up against the radiator, standing there, and everything came out to him. And it felt good. But then when I got home that night, I'll never forget the look my mum gave me, and that brought me back down to earth, because I then realised the impact this is after happening to everyone.
But that was obviously so huge relief when you finally got caught. The game was up. There was some pressure on you, like
unbelievable. Like, it's the only way I can describe it is if someone has their hands on your head and they're squeezing, and you can just feel it the whole time, but sometimes it's excruciating pain. And it's just like you want to scream the whole time, but you can't, because then you have to tell people why you're screaming or why you're so you're kind of playing, it's like, I'm sure you'll agree, Timmy, it's like 2 different lives.
It's like you when you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, everybody can see the damage that's being caused from the outside, because your physicality and you're just completely stressed. But when you're a gambler, you have to hold it together, because if you don't, you nearly give it away. You have to hold yourself together. But what's going on inside there is 24/7. You cannot think or focus on anything else but what's going on within the gambling world.
It shows as well the progressive nature of addiction as well. Like, you might get away with it for a period of time, but you're born and candle at both ends. Eventually, them ends come together. Like,
yeah, definitely.
But it came together and you didn't die.
John, that's the big thing.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm sitting here to talk about.
So many people probably listening to this now have lost family members for the gambling,
Did alcohol or drugs ever come into the equation?
No,
surprisingly
enough. Maybe alcohol, abuse sometimes, when you're on a Friday night, you're just going to forget what stuff you get. It was actually interesting the night before that came to light. I was sitting at the hotel bar in Carrickfergus drinking with a fella. He actually had a Rangers tattoo on the side of his head.
Lovely fella.
No, he was actually. And he was telling me great stories about Alex Higgins, and it was a time in the marching season. He was telling me where to go, where not to go. And he was in recovery for alcohol, but not that night. He wasn't in recovery. But it was like was like that moment of respite before everything. It was like it was kind of like I can just forget about something for a while. But then, as you know yourself, when you wake up from the hangover, you wake up from the gambling frenzy, you're back where you were.
You know, like when you're sitting in a bar and you find a fella with a Rangers tattoo on the side of his head friendly, you know you have a problem there. There's no treatment centres for that.
No.
That Rangers people are sound, do you know what I mean? I'm only having the ball hop.
No, it was just where I was at the time.
Yeah.
You know, like I was probably a Southern Reg car.
It's mad where it brought you, like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not common for an Irish Catholic to be sitting in the bar chatting to a fella with a Rangers tattoo on the side of his head. Tell me about the investigation with the police and how that evolved.
I suppose from there, then I right back down to Carlow. It was all over the newspapers. I was I think I stopped into Drogheda or Dundalk on the way home to get a bottle of water, and it's very surreal when you walk into the petrol station and see your picture in front of all the national newspapers.
Go out that.
It was on the 6 o'clock news and 9 o'clock news because of the amounts of money. I suppose I arrived into
was the audit was there something leading up to this?
Yeah, sorry, there was a surprise audit the morning of the 29th.
And did it come out straight away then?
No, because I was a missing person, so it only came out in the media then that weekend when I was not a missing person.
Yeah.
So I arrived down to Carlow and into the Garda station, surrendered my passport. I was still very paranoid about going out of the house. I moved out the country with my wife's parents, my ex-wife's parents, for a couple of days. I'll never forget the morning. I was sitting in the spare room. It was a Hello Kitty poster, and I could just hear a load of cars outside. Detective cars arrived, 5 of them pulled up. One there, one in Carlow, and one in my home place with search warrants looking for. They weren't even looking for money. Like, I think they were looking for journals. How did I keep account of all this money I'd stolen? Because I was there telling her the exact amount. Because you have to. Be computing it each day. So that was a bit surreal. And they interviewed me in there, and I remember I got interviewed in my solicitor's house, and they were brilliant throughout the whole process. The Gardaí, they said, go in and get your treatment, and we'll talk to you when you come out. And there was a detective, Ian Hayes, he was absolutely brilliant. I can't speak highly enough of the whole process with it, from where I was at. Like, they kind of could see that I was not your usual criminal that they might be dealing with. They kind of see that I was a victim of addiction, I suppose. They could see between the lines. I remember went into Cumberra for 3 months, left it, gone on very well there, left it 7th of October 2011. Yeah, 2011, and then I was asked to present myself in Gorey Garda Station on the 7th of December that year. I was charged with 46 sample charges of theft and false accounting, arrested, handcuffed, fingerprints taken, mugshot taken, belt and laces taken. It starts to hit you then. You're in a cell between interviews. I was interviewed for 12 hours, and that was the start of the process. So they told me about a year when
did you get bail?
I got bail, yeah. It told me about a year until it came to light, the court case. So I stayed on voluntary in Cumberra, trying to help other people coming through with gambling. That's when I started my journey of counselling psychotherapy.
Is that in a tie?
Yeah, it's in a tie. I started my journey then of becoming a counsellor and psychotherapist. And part of me, like, I think we were talking before, and like what got me into it is part of me was thinking, like, I want to help other people. Someone said that I have a nice way with people, that I might be something I could do.
Yeah.
But part of me, the logistical part of my brain was thinking, I won't have a job. All I ever knew was finance. I'll never be able to get a job, so I need to retrain in something. Went back and on counselling, but the court case was looming large. I got my foundation cert in counselling psychotherapy. The court case was on the 18th of December the following year, and I got sentenced to 4 years in prison, but once suspended. I was expecting more. I was told to expect more. I was told to expect between 5 and 7 years. And realistically, I probably should have, because of how it impacted. You mentioned on post, like, it had a huge impact on them and their employees. It had a huge impact on my family, on the community, on friends. So it was kind of, but because I was able to kind of show that I hadn't benefited from the gambling. Like, I'm still driving a brand new car. It's actually in the garage again. Yeah. I wasn't going on flash holidays, or, I was just, any of the money I was getting was going into Paddy Power. And
was it your local post office?
Oh no, it was in Gorey. I got the branch manager's job in Gorey. So it was, but they had to do a complete audit there because I'd worked there obviously as well. I'm sure.
Was there a lot of shame for you?
Huge.
They're small. They're not big towns, like.
No, but it's huge.
It's not like Cork City where it's big enough out there.
Yeah,
you know?
like because I work in the post office. I was playing junior football. I'd be well known from working in Scrags. So like you're walking down the street and like I used to go to cover darkness to bring the dog for a walk. That was my only bit of fresh air. People pulling by the house and you see them pointing and laughing. You'd be walking down the street and you'd see people talking. It's like there is shame and guilt. There's a mixed match of everything, and you're so paranoid. Like I remember even when I got out of prison, going to the community work, like you're so paranoid about people. But I must say the people at Carlo were absolutely brilliant. I think a lot of it was there was a lot of sympathy when I was sentenced. It was in Wexford and the courthouse was being done up at the time, so it was in the civic offices, so the cameras could follow you the whole way. You know, usually when you see a snippet from the court, you only walk from here to the wall away. Yeah, they followed me the whole way, and I think I was like your mum was dragging me. So I think there was a certain amount of sympathy that my parents got from that, I think. And I think that helped me knowing that. Was there a lot of media attention on the family home and stuff? Yeah, my father was being followed. I remember all the lads were saying, like, my local pub, it became really tight-knit. They wouldn't talk to any strangers at the bar. There's people being offered big money for interviews. I think one of my friends even said they got a picture of the football and they were asked to point out who it was, and he pointed out himself out, so the later. Yeah. So there was a lot of really... like I think when you've gone through this, you've gone through addiction, gone through prison, you start to know your friends. Like there's people that you would expect to talk and never talk to you again. I remember meeting someone in prison. I wrote about him in the book. I used a different name, and he would have been seen as a local kind of troublemaker, and he was brilliant. And I'll never forget the local Timmy Long. The local Timmy Long, yeah, and he was absolutely. He was in when I was in the Midlands, and like he made sure I was.
You're in the Midlands as well.
Yeah,
cheers, lads.
So he made sure I was okay on the landing, and when I wrote about the book, his daughter actually contacted me to see if we could meet, and I was kind of bricking it, thinking like, what's she going to say? And she just said it was lovely that you showed a different side of him that we knew, and it was lovely. Like he's dead, and he's dead now. He had an argument with his son, and his son threw a knife and he hit him in the groin, and he bled out. Jesus, he was the first person to ring me when my mum died. And offer his condolences. He just showed you, like you would think you'd be judgmental of people, but until you meet them and see them in a different light. We did a prison series there recently, like, and this the point of it, like do podcasts with people that are in prison. You have perception that the bad people are on the inside and the good people are on the outside, but it's not like that. It's not that straightforward. And some very decent people are in prison that have made mistakes, and some people that are on the outside that are pricks. Yeah. And that's just because on the outside it doesn't mean that they're goody two shoes or whatever. But
like everybody's doing the best they can at whatever point of their lives. They make mistakes, and people make mistakes because they don't know any better, because they're chasing something, or they're trying to soothe themselves because they can't whatever, and as people we have to start realising like that people leave people off, leave them do their journey, leave them off. Let's stop judging every single person, and just leave people do their journey, leave them learn from mistakes, and just get on with your own life. And I have a lot going on for me at the moment. Growth, therapy. I still go to therapy. I'm 10.5 years away from that lifestyle and the drinking drugs, but I think it's a continuous journey. The growth, the healing and stuff that. From trauma, and it's just like I like having conversations that are meaningful and creating certain things in life, doing nice stuff. I kind of move away from anything that's other than where it's not so positive, and where it's a little negative, where somebody's been slaughtered because of something they may have done. It just doesn't feel right for me to be involved in that kind of conversation anymore. And that to me is showing me that I'm going through another stage of my life where there's growth, and feels good. Yeah, there's definitely. But it feels shit like if you lose your awareness and you get caught up in it, do you know what I mean?
Definitely something happens, I think, when you come through life changing thing like addiction or prison or a trauma or whatever. You can come out the far side, you definitely look at things a lot differently. You definitely, like, I know my kind of philosophy now is I'm still trying to change. I still have a bad relationship with money and buying stuff. It's still something I'm still working on, but and I know my triggers. I know my underlying kind of issues will be just a bit of attachment, but also probably insecurities that come to the surface every so often. And while I'm touch wood having gambled in nearly 11 years, it's kind of you go back into old ways like shopping a good bit as well. So. But what I try to is I'm trying to change my life, and I think since the pandemic, I suppose I have done that a lot more, and I'm starting to reconnect more with myself and with others, and less to reconnect them with behaviour stuff like shopping or stuff like that. So I think there's definitely growth there, but I'm sure you'll agree, there's always room for more growth as we're going through.
Just keep going,
yeah,
because we can get comfortable when we get a bit well in ourselves and we don't feel as awful as we did before, and we get to a place where there's not that much criticism in the mind or judgment on yourself anymore. Yeah. We get comfortable in that.
Yeah.
But it's important to keep going.
Yeah.
You know, with the therapy or meditation or the psychotherapy, whatever it may be.
Stand on your head for 2 hours each day if that's what works.
Yeah.
Exactly. What's life like for you today?
Life is brilliant. I lost a lot through the addiction. I lost my job, obviously. I lost my freedom, I lost my marriage. Lost time with my daughter. Just on this week, I have her most weekends. Had a brilliant weekend where Father's Day this weekend. Had a brilliant weather with a new partner, living in Waterford. And life is really good. We have a really good relationship. It's kind of I still have the old insecurities still come every so often, but I have a lot more. I have a lot better coping skills. My colleague Barry is absolutely brilliant. He's he's a friend as well as a colleague. I can bounce stuff off him.
Yeah.
I have my friends who I see every so often down in Carlow, not as much as I'd like. And you walk back into that environment, it's like you never left it. So it's really good. I'm trying to continue to grow in recovery and become a better person, become less reliant on material stuff, which is something that I have to kind of probably, that as you were talking about stages, that's my next stage. I'm getting there with it. It's not perfect, but I often say, and I was hoping you might put this quote up on your wall, that I often say, like, I've been, I've never been better in my life, but it's pity I had to go to hell and back to get there.
That's worth putting up on the wall.
Yeah, I want it beside Gabriel Matte's one there, please.
If you have a marker there, you can actually
can
draw
scribble, can I? Yeah, no problem.
We get it printed. But listen, it's been lovely talking to you. Thanks for taking the time to come to meet us, and brilliant story. It'll help people, and if people want to contact you or follow you on social media.
Yeah, so we have the organisation I'm in is External Problem Gambling. So if you Google that, it comes up, or I think it's at problemgambling.ie is our website. So we offer support for people who are going through gambling addiction or their family members. We also do our own podcast called the Problem Gambling Podcast, which a lot of people find really good, because people might want to reach out for help and support by listening to other people's testimonies. It helps them.
Definitely.
Can you repeat the name of that podcast again?
The Problem Gambling Podcast.
The Problem Gambling Podcast.
So, and then I also do some school talks and stuff like that as well. So our contact, I'm on social. Yeah, 2010 is the name of the book.
2010.
Yeah.
And then there's a documentary and Finnair series on TG Cahill.
Series 2, episode 2.
Yeah,
very worthwhile watching, because I think it gives you great insight by the other people being interviewed. So yeah, I'm on social media as well if anyone wants to contact for any advice, support.
And we'll throw some links in the description of the podcast.
Gambling's a massive
something we need to be talking about.
Moment,
Exactly. But thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Sure,
we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you, Tony. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And
thank you.
I could definitely relate to everything that we spoke about. And thanks again for coming. And I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thanks very much.
God bless.
Thank you.
Bye bye.